Your workshop presenters are invited to do those deep breaths throughout the conference. So I hope that helps during these challenging times. All right, I'll let Mike take it from here and also hit that record button. Thanks, Mike.
No problem. Thank you, Sabrina. Just want to remind everyone to please put yourselves on mute to reduce some background noise. We are recording, and that I am moderating the chat function. So if you do have questions, please use the chat. I'm going to introduce Jim Peacock, who will be talking about intentional serendipity. Jim Peacock is the principal of Peak Careers Consulting, offering the Facilitating Career Development class since 2001. Discussion-based online seminars on a variety of career topics and face-to-face workshops for career practitioners. He's a certified career services provider and global career development facilitator. In 2007, he received the NCDA Outstanding Career Practitioner Award. In 2020, he was honored to receive the Ken Hoyt Career Education Practitioner Award from the NCDA. He is the author of a field guide for career practitioners, helping clients create their next move. He also writes a weekly career email for career practitioners.
Jim, you're on mute right now. There we go.
Thank you. So I want everyone to get down by your little reaction button. This is your first task before we go any further. And I just want to say, I'm thrilled that CCC has been able to pull this off. And I just want to give a round of applause to the board and to my dear friend Sabrina for being the president, and she chose a good year to do it. So everybody, let's do a big clap for the board and give it up to the board. There we go. Awesome. Thank you. So today I want to talk about intentional serendipity, and I'll give you a little bit of a background. So I'm a forestry major. You all probably knew that, but I look like a forestry major. I act like one. I also was the director of student activities at Colby. That's how I came to Maine. I also worked in the Office of Tourism. I also was a school counselor in the 80s and a director of advising and career at a community college. Each one of those places, I discovered something important, either about me, something I liked, or something I didn't like, or something about the world of work. And as a school counselor, one of the things I discovered was I really didn't like the counseling stuff nearly as much as I liked the career stuff. And so every time I went to a conference, I'd go to all the career sessions, and I'd find places I could go to learn more about the career information and career education and career development, and began to sort of build that background. And of course, one of the things that you learn early on is the Holland theory, and you learn about trait factor theory, right? If you like to build kitchen cabinets, maybe you should look at jobs that use your hands and build things. Pretty basic. The most widely known and used interest theory in the world, and it works. I mean, we used to give it to. We went as school counselors. We would give the Harrington O'Shea Holland-based interest assessment to every sophomore in the high school every year, and we looked at those. We had them take those assessments and come up with their own Holland codes, and then we could have them begin to do some research on their Holland code and maybe some possible careers. And the reality is it's a pretty linear process, and it works today, but it's worked for 100, I don't know when Holland came, probably in the 50s. So it worked for 50, 60 years for sure. And it still works okay now, but you just have to be aware that Holland has some inherent bias built into it. If I'm a young person who lives in North Dakota oil fields, or if I'm a person who lives in New York City in more of an affluent high school, or if I'm a student in Detroit, Michigan, you give me a Holland interest assessment, and I can guess pretty much what your Holland code is going to be, because Holland is so much influenced by socioeconomic and geography, right? And I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination to get rid of Holland. I think Holland still works. Holland worked for two of my siblings, right? I have two brothers that work great. What they said they wanted to do in high school is what they're still doing to this day. But the other three of us didn't have a very, very linear path, right? I mean, the path that I just described for you was clearly not a linear path. I mean, what's my Holland code for forestry, student activities, tourism, and career coach, right? I don't know what that Holland code is. And Holland is based on the fact that things don't change much, right? If you have this trait, this factor, we can hook those two together and combine them. And again, it works. But that whole theory is based upon choosing an occupational title. And I think the world that we live in today, it's really not about occupational titles. It's really more about skills and identifying skills first and finding value. And I think that's really where I kind of landed with this intentional serendipity. I can still remember, it was probably 20 years ago now, I went to the Mid-Atlantic Career Counseling Association conference. Anybody go to MACA here? Any thumbs up on that? Any MACA people? Oh, okay, great. Amy? That's a great conference as well. And it's, yeah, okay, Jean A. And I'm not able to see everybody, but those were the people I saw. But anyways, MACA is a great conference. This is their 50th anniversary. They get to celebrate their 50th with COVID, which is nice. Well, not really, I'm kidding. But that's a great conference. And I went there and I saw John Crumboltz present his happenstance learning theory. And I was blown away. It was the first career theory that actually replicated what happened to me and what happens to so many of the people that I know. So thumbs up, and give me thumbs up for how many of you are familiar with happenstance learning theory. And I'm going to flip through some pages. Keep going. Give me another. I'm going to go to another page here. I want to just sort of see. Okay. Okay, good. So at least half of you folks are familiar with happenstance. So Crumboltz, when he presented that at MACA, I was just, like I said, I was just blown away. I was like, this is the first time someone, a career person, actually presented the reality of the world of work that I was familiar with. And so, and I will also say that it's not John Crumbolt's theory. So we should be careful about that. It's actually Crumboltz, Levin, and Mitchell are the three people that developed. Crumboltz gets a lot of credit, and I'll even probably say it today, but we got to give credit where credit is due. Levin and Mitchell did a lot of work with John Crumboltz early on to develop this theory. So a few of the premises of happenstance. One is you can actually create luck. You can create luck. It can be done. And there's actually research that shows that. And I can, Richard Wiseman's The Luck Factor book is filled with it, and he's done research that proves it. A few of the basic premises of happenstance learning theory are that you must take action in order to discover something new. You got to be open to discovering something new, but you have to take action. It's one of the basic premises of that. You do need curiosity and sort of persistence. There's a number of different things, but the two that I want you to take away from today, and as I talk about intentional serendipity, it's really taking action and being open to discovering something by accident. And happenstance learning theories is based in learning theory area, and it believes that people can be taught on how to do stuff, right? It's like, think about a student or a client that, you know, you say, I want you to go do an informational interview. And sometimes a student will go, okay, you know, so here's some alumni people you can, you know, here's your alumni folks you might want to go talk to. They're warm connections. Go do an informational interview, learn about that job, blah, blah, blah. Then you have some other students who look at you like you've just dropped them in an alligator pit. There is no way on God's green earth that they are gonna go and make a call to someone they don't know. Learning theory is based on the fact that we can still take that person and get them there, but we have to break it into smaller pieces. And so learning theory is in a lot of the work that's buried in happenstance is really about how do you move people through those processes. So some of those folks, you know, I'd have to work with them and make sure that they get, what are they going to say when they call, you know, and how do we break that down into those smaller pieces? And that's what's so important about the work that we do. You know, a lot of times I'll say, look at, they're like, I can't talk to a complete stranger. And I'm like, you didn't know me 30 minutes ago, right? I mean, so many people come in, they didn't know me. And this is the first time they're meeting me, and they're moving forward with me in their career development. And I tell them, you can do this with other people as well. We start with those warm connections, and we do that. So one of the other differences in happenstance theory, and again, I'll compare it to trait factor, and that is happenstance really believes that people change, environments change, and work changes. And so the trait factor is saying nothing changes. If you like this, stick with this. It's a little more narrow. But the reality is only 7% of the adults are actually doing what they thought they were going to do in high school. So when people come to me and say I'm undecided, I say join the club. You're in a big group of people. You're with 93% of the population who are changing and maneuvering and not really undecided on where they're going. And so after that's sort of the background, kind of how I came here, and I began calling it intentional serendipity a few years back. And I tell people when I meet with clients, I'm talking to them about that you have to be intentional. You have to take some kind of action in order to move forward in your career. And it doesn't matter what. Seeing me is you know, seeing you is actual action. Informational interviews are action. But then be willing to discover, be open to discovering things by accident. And when you say intentional serendipity, also, I don't know if it's because there's 9 syllables and 2 words, but everybody starts paying attention to you. It's kind of like intentional serendipity. And they're like, really? So I met with a high school age kid. I don't really work with high school age students very much. But yesterday I met with this guy just as sort of a favor to his parents who I know. And all 3 of them were in there, and I said it, and you could see all 3 of them just kind of went, really? And then I had to explain it. Yeah, and this is where we're going to go. And a couple of the big points here that I want to make. Excuse me 1 minute. There we go. Is when I talk to them about taking action and being open to discovering, one of the other things I'm trying to deal with is I tell people this. I don't want you to think about occupational titles. I don't want you to think about occupational titles. Because once you do that, you're not open to discovering something new. I want them to remove that thinking. It worked in the 50s, in the 60s, and probably in the 70s. And but the world that we're in today, I want people, when I'm working with clients, I want them to focus on their value. What is the value added that you bring to the table? What I call the 5 or 6 essential things you want everyone to know about you. You got to get that buried in their heads and say, these are the 5 or 6 things that are important to me, so that when they do go do research, they can begin to go, yeah, that meets that one, that meets that one, it meets that one. Now you know you're warmer, right? And if they get one of those fancy jobs that has a cool title, but it doesn't meet any of their value, they can then begin to question themselves and to maybe cross it off their list. But it's really about respecting the titles. Michael, we didn't get started exactly on time. Do you want me to end at 10:35?
That is correct. That was our
all right.
Time.
Okay. All right. I can do it. I just wanted to make sure you guys were where we were on the timing. So let me give you an example. An accountant analyzes financial information, prepares financial reports, records assets, liabilities, etc. Now they're called accountants, but they're also called, if you go to ONET, they're also called business analysts. They're also called CPAs. They're also called a number of things. Somebody who actually sets up and operates a variety of machine tools are called machinists. But if you actually look at job titles, they're called tool and die, maintenance and repair worker, machine tenders. So even when you look at social workers, they're called case managers, youth service specialists, family resource coordinators. So that's not about the job title. And that's really where I have to try to get people to get their heads, is focus on their value. So I do card sorts with them. We do have them tell stories, right? And have them talk about peak experiences, use a number of things, but that's the first thing that I'm trying to do with people is get into their head. It's not about the job title. It's about the value that you want to bring. And then when you go out and embrace intentional serendipity, they've got that filter on. These are the 5 or 6 most important things, the essential things that I want everyone to know. And when they are going out and doing some of this work, they've got that filter on. So let me give you I want to mention one more thing, this action that when you are encouraging people to take action, the reason you're doing that is to get people out of their comfort zone. There's not a lot of learning that happens in the comfort zone, right? Because people are comfortable. I'm just going to continue to do what I did last week. I still can't find any work. What have you done? I applied to another 300 jobs online. Well, guess what? That's your comfort zone. Boom, boom. And I'm like, we got to get out of that comfort zone. But you also can't push people to the panic zone, right? There's 3 zones here that you got to be thinking about. There's a comfort zone, and happenstance, and in my intentional, as I talk about intentional serendipity, is to move people out of that comfort zone, take some action that moves them over. But if they go to panic zone, there's no learning that happens there either. What we got to do is get into that stretch zone. There's a stretch zone in there that gets people a little out of their comfort zone, but also gets them to that point where they're still able to learn and be open to discovering things. So how do I do that? Let me give you a couple of examples, and I'm going to try to leave at least a minute or so for questions. And I don't want to forget this. Michael,
Yep.
I don't have a handout. I don't have a PowerPoint, as you can see, but I do have, Michael's got 3 blogs that I've written, and there's probably more online, but I've given him 3 that he can send. And I would say, don't go to them right now and stop paying attention to me, but you can grab those blogs and take a look, and there'll be more information about it. But let me give you a couple of examples of how I use intentional serendipity and happenstance. Informational interviews. Well, guess what? I used to assign informational interviews before I learned about happenstance. Why? It's a good place to gather information. The difference with me, with my happenstance filter on, is I now encourage people to go and say, what else is out there? If you could do this job all over again, what would you do? If someone had asked that of me when I was a school counselor, I would have said speech therapy. Why? You can still help people, but you get to see the results. Like in school counseling and counseling, you don't get to see results. Speech therapists usually get to see something change, right? Wouldn't that be great? But what a great question, because somebody might be coming to me to say, tell me about your school, what a school counselor does. But when you ask that question, if you could do it all over again, what would you do, or what else might you do? Or if you ask people, what other people who work here need these same skills, my skills? And that's why you got to have that value added statement ready, and you start with that, right? So the informational interview hasn't changed, except I've twisted it just a little bit. And I'm saying, you want to go to that informational interview and say, what else is out there? Internships. When students would take internships, I was helping, for a couple of years, I helped Colby College, and about a year I helped Bates College out when they were short-staffed. And when I met with those students who would go on internships, great, go on internships. While you're there, ask who else in this department uses these skills. Ask who else at this company uses these skills, and go have lunch or go have coffee with those people.
Jim, we are at the 1 minute warning. Just want to give you that heads up.
Yeah, I have. So you can do that with internships. You can do that with networking, right? It's all about coming in, leading in with the value first. What's important to me, being clear in my head, but then going to those informational interviews or conversations, or that you're having with your network, and saying, this is what's important to me. This is the value that I bring to the table, and what is out there? It's a very open-ended question. What do you think I should do? What do you think is out there? What kind of jobs are out there for me to discover in your industry, in your company, but other companies? And that warm connection they're often going to be the people there that are willing to listen to you and give you some great tips. And then pretty soon you're going, I never even heard of that job. Well, is there someone I can talk to? So for me, this is really a filter that my intentional serendipity filter is on all the time. I'm saying, who do I meet? What else is out there? It requires some curiosity, but it's continuing to do much of the same stuff that you're doing already, but give it a little twist and help people understand that there's more out there that you don't know, and be open to discovering things by accident. So I mentioned Richard Wiseman's The Luck Factor. That's filled with research. Krumboltz and Levin also wrote Luck is No Accident. And that's a book I use in my online seminar. But so much for leaving 5 minutes for questions, but that's all I have.
Can I ask a quick one?
Yeah.
It's Sabrina. Do you happen to have, I like the questions. In one of those articles, do you happen to have a list of those, like, kind of other questions to ask an informational interview? Because I liked the one about, if you could pursue something all over, if you could start over, what might you pursue? So some of those, are they in some of your articles, or do you have them somewhere? Just curious.
It should be in one of those blogs. Yes, I know.
Okay,
I've written
I'll check
about
it.
I know I've written about it.
Or maybe oh, you know what? I think it might be in your book.
It could be. Yeah. Well, yeah. It'll probably be in both.
Okay.
Yeah, in the book, I actually did devote a whole section of questions on there. You're right. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just remembering it. So thank you. This is so helpful.
Thank you for all you folks for coming. And I have to go do another presentation, so I guess I should leave. But thank you all very much, and we'll see you. Michael, are we all set?
We're good. Thank you.
Awesome. Take care, everybody.